Are you letting fear hold you back? Hey everybody, welcome to The Whole Truth, where I am taking you through the entire Bible from Genesis all the way to Revelation without skipping anything. So if that sounds good to you, make sure that you reach down, hit the little subscribe button below. Don't forget to go over to thewholetruthbiblestudy.com if you're looking to find all of the videos in one convenient location, easy to navigate. It's right there in one place. Plus there's ways to support the channel and support this project. I am on a mission to get as many people as I possibly can into God's Word. But the only way to do that is for you to pick it up and read it. And that's what I want you to do right now. Pause the video, go get your Bible, come back and do this with me. It's Numbers chapter 14. Israel has been at Mount Sinai, finally moved towards the promised land. It's been over a year since they were delivered from Egypt. Remember, they were slaves in Egypt. They've been delivered from that, and they've been sitting at the base of Mount Sinai. Not sitting physically, but they've been waiting at the base of Mount Sinai while Moses was up on the mountain receiving the law of God. And now they have the law of God, and they're moving towards the promised land, but they paused and they sent in spies. And in chapter 13, those spies, 10 of the 12 spies that went into the land of Canaan, they came back. That's the promised land. They went into the promised land. They've come back. And you know what they said? Don't go in. Don't go into the promised land because it's full of people, giants even. There's strong nations that are there. The Canaanites are down by the sea, and the Jebusites are there, and even the sons of Anak are there. Remember that video? That was just last video. That was chapter 13. They said, don't go in. Now there's two guys, Caleb and Joshua. They're saying, we better go in and go possess it. But there's these other guys, these other 10 spies are saying, you can't do it. We can't go in. And they even said this. They said, from our perspective, we look like grasshoppers compared to these people. They're so big and they're so powerful. We just look like grasshoppers. And remember in that video, we talked about they compared themselves to the giants instead of comparing the giants to God. Well, now today we're seeing the follow-up of that. Here's the reaction to what those 10 spies had told everybody in Israel. This is Numbers chapter 14. So all the congregation lifted up their voices and cried, and the people wept that night. And all the children of Israel complained against Moses and Aaron. And the whole congregation said to them, if only we had died in the land of Egypt, or if only we had died in this wilderness. Why has the Lord brought us to this land to fall by the sword, that our wives and children should become victims? Would it not be better for us to return to Egypt? And so they said to one another, let us select a leader and return to Egypt. Then Moses and Aaron fell on their faces before all the assembly of the congregation of the children of Israel. But Joshua the son of Nun and Caleb the son of Jephunneh, who were among those who had spied out the land, tore their clothes, and they spoke to all the congregation of the children of Israel, saying, the land we passed through to spy out is an exceedingly good land. If the Lord delights in us, then he will bring us into this land and give it to us, a land which flows with milk and honey. Only do not rebel against the Lord, nor fear the people of the land, for they are our bread. Their protection has departed from them, and the Lord is with us. Do not fear them. And all the congregation said to stone them with stones, because the glory of the Lord had appeared in the tabernacle of meeting before all the children of Israel. My goodness. The 10 spies are going to the whole congregation, and they're saying, you can't go in the land, you can't possess it. And in verse 1 of chapter 14, what we see is that the people are crying all night long. They thought that they were supposed to go into the promised land, and now they're being told you can't go into the promised land. Now just pause for a second. Are they being told by God that they can't go into the promised land? Not at all. No, God's telling them go in and go take the land. Caleb and Joshua are saying go in and go take the land. God is on our side. But the people are being ruled by fear. They are so scared of what they just heard that they are scared of going in. They're scared to go into the land because they think, well, that's even what they say. They say, oh, if only we had just died in Egypt. Wouldn't that have been better to just die in Egypt? I don't understand this premise. Like, it's better to die there than die there. Like, it's better to die in Egypt than die in Canaan. I don't understand how that's any better. But they were so full of fear, they said, wouldn't it have just been better if we just died in Egypt? And here's what their suggestion is. This is what they're saying. They're mad at Moses and they're mad at Aaron. They're saying, why did you bring us out here? And in verse 4, they literally say, let us select leaders and return to Egypt. 2 years later, not even 2 years later, they're on the way into the promised land. They haven't even tried to go in. And just because of the report, remember, there are over 2 million people in Israel at this point. 2 million people are being led by just 10 people who are saying, don't go in. God is saying go in. Moses is saying go in. Aaron is saying go in. The Joshua and Caleb are saying you need to go in, but there's 10 people saying, well, we can't go in because there's giants in the land. We can't go in because the Canaanites are down by the sea. We can't go in because the Jebusites are in the mountains. We can't go in because of these other reasons. And so these 10 guys are saying we can't go in, and 2 million people are weeping. They're weeping, and they've said, let's just select a leader. Let's just go back to Egypt. Hey, just stop for a sec. Does that kind of speak to you a little bit? Maybe not all of you, but maybe one of you is watching this or listening to this even right now, and you know that you've been trying to go back to old things, an old way of life that's comfortable. It's something that you know. Maybe even it's uncomfortable. Maybe it's something that you hate and you didn't want, but it's the fear of the unknown, the fear of what is next or what might be next is so gripping to you that you continually go back to the same old thing. Israel is saying, let's just take our leaders. Let's take our people. Let's delegate some leaders. Let's send them back into Egypt. Let's come back with our tail between our legs. We couldn't make it as a nation. Now, I want to tell you a bit of a personal story to me, and it's about my church. My church, the church that I get to pastor, it's not mine as in I own it, but the church that I belong to as pastor. That church grew from about 30 people to about 300 people in about a year's time span. And we needed somewhere to go. We were meeting in a building that could hold 120 people-ish. We were cramming in 170, 180. There were times people came to me and said, do we need to call the fire marshal? Has somebody called the fire marshal? Is this okay to have this many people in here? It was that type of pack. People were literally carpooling. They were parking at another church's parking lot, piling in each other's vans, and then driving over to our building to come to church with us. And so we had gone into 3 services. I was preaching 3 services in the day, which I didn't mind necessarily, but it just came with all kinds of problems. And we were begging God and saying, what do we do? Where do we go? And I'll spare you the details to only say that basically this giant building presents itself as available. And is it perfect? No. When we went in to go look, let me give you a perspective. The building that we were in was right about 10,000 square feet, 5,000 square feet upstairs and 5,000 square feet downstairs. And we were putting over 300 people into that building. And it was a lot in that space. We find this building, it's 54,000 square feet. But when we went in, there were raccoons. The building's been sitting empty for 20 years. There were raccoons. There were problems with flooding that had happened in the basement. So some of the carpet and some of the drywall was ruined, and there was concern about the piping, like do the pipes work or whatever. And I will tell you firsthand that when we first went and we looked, some of the leadership of the church, we went and we looked. One of the first things that we said that we were concerned about, we said, if all the people see the church in this shape, they're going to be scared if they see the building, I should say, in this type of shape, they're going to be scared to go in. And so we started getting in talks about taking the building, and the Lord was just lining things up. Y'all, if I told you, you'd have a hard time believing the things that the Lord just lined up for us to be able to take this building, to be able to move from one to another. And we went in, we took that time period and we went in and we began to start cleaning the building up as best as we could. We start getting rid of the raccoons and we start getting rid of all the mess that they've been leaving. And we're cleaning up in that way and getting the birds out of there and trying to, get everything as best as we can to try to get everything in working order. And we did. We got everything in as best working order as we could. And we had everybody come over and see the building. We finally had everybody come over and see the building. And we had kind of a soft rollout in that building Easter of last year. So a year, it's now June, right now it's June 1st. And when I'm shooting this video, and it was Easter of the year prior that we went in for the first time. And I will tell you the number of people that came to me. Now I'm not talking negative about anybody. I'm just telling you like a real story for me was the number of people that came to me and they were like, Justin, building this big. These are things that were said to me. Justin, building this big. Oh, you might not know what you're getting into. I mean, the bills are going to be so expensive. The electric bill, the water bill, everything, you may not be prepared for a building this big and what you might be getting here. And I just don't know. And I would say, well, yeah, but what about, and I would go over some of those stories of how, things had lined up about rent and being able to pay and moving in and all of those things that were lining up. And some people came to me and they said, Justin, the building that's set this long, it's going to have lots of problems. If you try to turn the water on in this building, you're probably going to have pipes busting and leaking everywhere. And by the way, did you know, here's a fun story about that. We were concerned about that. The thing to turn the water on, it looks like something out of a movie, like out of a submarine ship. It's like this big kind of wheel thing to turn it on. We had a Navy guy down there turning the water on for us. I thought that was fitting. And so, we're turning the water on, and we've got people stationed throughout the building watching pipes. Nothing busted. Everything worked. After years of sitting, we turned the water on and everything just worked. Everything was fine. We were worried about the sprinkler system. The same thing with the sprinkler system. They were worried we were going to turn it on. Things were going to shoot water out everywhere, but that's not what happened. Turn the sprinkler system on and everything worked. But everyone would come to me and they would say, well, Justin, a building that big, to paint it was what my point is that the thought of a building this big and a building this old and a building this ugly and all of those things just kept weighing on everyone to the point that everybody's concerned, well, are we going to be able to do this? And we had to stand strong to lead the charge to say, the Lord is opening the doors. We want to walk through the doors that the Lord is opening. And I know some of you might be in my church. You might be watching this now going, I'm still questioning. Well, friends, I'll tell you this. Here's the next thing I want to tell you. I have had more than one request of people coming to me and saying, Justin, can we go back to the old building? Friends, I'm telling you, I remember getting phone calls that someone would say to me, Justin, I tried to come to church today, but I couldn't make it because I couldn't find a place to park. I remember when we were trying to do socials and get-togethers with our church and have fellowship with our church, and we tried to have a meal, and we couldn't even have a meal in the church because we couldn't have there wasn't enough seating. There just wasn't enough seating. And we had to end up, people were taking their plates and going and sitting in the sanctuary upstairs by themselves. And it wasn't even by themselves. There was a crowd of people going up there because there just wasn't enough seats. We were in the Sunday school classrooms and the fellowship hall, in the kitchen, outside, up in the sanctuary, just because there wasn't enough place for us to all sit down and have a meal together. And there were growth problems beyond just, we were having to do 3 services or there wasn't enough parking outside. There were growth problems all the way around. And so someone comes to me and they say, Justin, can we go back to the old building? And I go, friends, we're too big for that. We've come too far for that. We can't go back to a building that's really, at best is about 120 people can fit in that building. Our church just can't do that. And I look at a story like this and I see where God is opening up the promised land to the Israelite people, and they are so scared of the things that I'll call them problems that are in the way, the things that are objects in the way. They're so scared of those that they're about to miss the blessing, literally about to miss the blessing that they've wanted and that God had promised to them. They're about to miss it. Look at what happens in the story. Back to the story in verse 5, Moses and Aaron fall on their face before all the assembly of the congregation of the children of Israel. But Joshua the son of Nun and Caleb the son of Jephunneh, who were among those who had spied out the land, they tore their clothes and they spoke to all the congregation of all the children of Israel, saying, the land we passed through to spy out is an exceedingly good land. If the Lord delights in us, he will bring us into the land and give it to us, a land which flows with milk and honey. Only do not rebel against the Lord, nor fear the people of this land, for they are our bread. Think about that. They're saying, don't fear the people. They're our bread. They're the ones who cultivated the land and built the cities, and they are our bread and butter, friends. Like, it's not a problem that they're there. It's a good thing that they're there. And here's what we read. Their protection has departed from them, and the Lord is with us. Do not fear them. You see that? They're saying, Caleb and Joshua are saying, don't fear this. Don't be afraid of this. Yes, the task looks big, but it's not too big for God. Their protection is gone. God has our protection now. They're our bread and butter. Don't be scared of them. Triumph. Go into the land. Take it. It's a good land. Here's what I want to tell you. I'm going to use my story. You can implant your own story here, but I'm going to use my story again about what's happening at my church. And you know what? I'm going to tell you this. Here's a true story. And I've told this. Our landlord knows this. We have a lease with option to buy on this gigantic building. And I know that some see some problems with it and they're concerned. And here's what I've continued to say. Our church doesn't have, you mark my words, this is 2023, and I'm telling you, the church that I pastor does not have enough money to buy this building. If we come up with enough money to be able to buy this building, it is only God at work. There's no other way that we will be able to come up with enough money to purchase this building. So here's the thing. If God is for us, if God is in this, then he's good. I'm talking about myself, my personal example right now. If God is in this, then he'll take care of it. I can promise you this. I have not lost one minute of sleep concerned about the building or moving our church or whatever. If God wants us in a different place, he'll lift up the cloud and he'll move it somewhere else and we'll go there. But if God wants us where we are, then guess what? He's going to provide for us. He's going to take care of us. Can you put yourself in that place? Would you be willing to accept that maybe where you are right now, that looks like this insurmountable task, that if God is on your side, he'll take care of it? And at the end of it, he'll be able to get all of the glory for doing a good work in you. That's what Caleb and Joshua are saying. Listen, God's on our side. He can do this. And God can work in your situation. And the bigger your situation is, the more glory God gets out of it when he overcomes that and when he brings you through that. Would you be willing to put your faith there? Listen to how Joshua and Caleb said it at the end of verse 9. They said, "Do not fear. The Lord is with us." That's what I'm telling. Put your faith in the Lord. Don't put your faith in fear. Put your faith in the Lord, who is your protection. But look at how the people ended this in verse 10. And all the congregation said to stone them with stones. Stone them with stones. That's what he's saying. Caleb and Joshua, go into the land. The Lord is for us. Don't fear. And the people say, kill them. Get rid of these two. They would rather kill Joshua and Caleb and go tuck tail and run back into slavery than to face what is ahead of them with the Lord on their side. I look at that and go, that is absolutely crazy. But then I think about myself and I think about us, and how many times do we do the same thing? God is right there. His word has promised that he is for us and he is with us. He will strengthen us. We read those things. I mean, it always gets put in like sports things, like, Christian basketball programs or something, that Philippians chapter 4, that I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. But it has nothing to do with sports or baseball or basketball. That is not what Paul was talking about at all. Paul was actually saying, I've learned how to abase and I've learned how to abound. I've learned how to have nothing and I've learned how to be blessed. I can be both. He says, I become all things to all men, that by all means some might be saved. That's what he's talking about. He's like, I can do anything through Christ who strengthens me. So I'm going to use my example again and say, for us, it's a big old church building. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me, not because our congregation grows or not because we have enough money, but because God is for us. And that's what I want you to be able to say about your life, because the alternative is you tuck tail and run. And honestly, I want to tell you this, the people who are in your life who are trying to encourage you to do what God has called you to do, sometimes you end up running them out of your life because you're so desperate to not have to face your fear, the thing that's in front of you that is bigger than you, but it's not bigger than God. I hope that you're hearing these messages and I hope they're applying to you. I hope you'll come back tomorrow as we get into Numbers chapter 15. I'll see you then.